What up, Bulls Nation? Peck here. We got a live CHGO Bulls podcast for y'all right around the corner, and it's an off day for the Bulls. That means we're talking trades as we near that deadline. And we're going to start things off by talking to our guy Gerald from PHNX Suns. What's going on with Bradley Beal, plus Jimmy Butler stuff, plus the latest on Vooch. That's all coming up next. What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome into the CHGO Bulls podcast. Coming to you live from our studios here in West Loop, downtown Chicago. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck. That's Big Dave. Bam! Bam! BAWL Sports. Will the GOAT, perfectly coiffed, Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb, and the Queen of Controls, rocking with us always, the one and only Katie Duffy. What up, Kat? Hey!
Hi.
Woo! Trade talk day, y'all. We are getting down to the wire. February 6th trade deadline right around the corner. And to kick things off for today's show, we are pleased to bring in our guy from PHNX Suns, somebody that we miss seeing when we're not hanging out in Vegas with the whole crew. He does a great job covering the Suns for PHNX. If you want to follow him to get his latest intel and reporting and what's going on between now and the deadline, you can do so at Gerald Bourguet on Twitter. Welcome, the one and only Gerald Bourguet. What up, buddy?
What's up, guys? I missed y'all. How you doing?
We miss you. How are things in the desert?
They are dry. They are great. They're probably not as cold as where you are, though.
It's like a nice.
It was a balmy 45 when I walked into the office earlier.
That's basically 60 out here, bro.
Oh man, I don't do below 70. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, I like
well,
that.
apparently neither does Bradley Beal, based on some reporting we got yesterday out of the Athletic.
He's from St. Louis.
What do you make of that whole he will not waive his no trade clause to come to the Bulls? He would be willing to do so in certain circumstances, but Chicago winters, no thank you. Losing teams, no thank you. Are you hearing the same about Beal and the situation he's in right now?
It's tough to parse what's like real and what's just subterfuge season because everybody is posturing right now. Like every report is coming from a specific camp for a specific reason. It's all about the leverage and what's being leaked right now. I think there could be truth to the fact that Beal maybe doesn't want to go to Chicago. I'm kind of surprised by it because, you know, we've talked about this on our show, but Chicago close to his home city of St. Louis. Obviously, there's the whole Billy Donovan reunion there. Even if you don't put a lot of stock in that, Beal could go back to being a number one option. And yeah, it's not on a team like a hopeful contender like he wanted to join, but his role would be a lot more clear on the Bulls than it is here in Phoenix right now. So I'm a little surprised to hear that, but it kind of does make sense at the same time. I think if you look around the league, though, he's going to run short of teams that he would be willing to waive his no trade clause for that would actually be willing to trade for Bradley Beal. And I'm sure Chicago is probably not one of those, but it's an interesting, I don't want to say beggars can't be choosers, but it's an interesting dynamic in terms of him wanting to pick his spot and other teams also having their say in where he winds up.
I know that Beal has been great for you guys, like off the floor, and obviously he's dealt with injuries from the moment he's gotten there. But would you classify his time with the Phoenix Suns as a disappointment?
Yeah, I would. And I think a lot of that doesn't even have to do with Beal. I think a lot of it has to do with the injuries, which obviously are kind of out of his control. We heard a lot of Wizards fans warning us that this would be the case. The little nicks and bruises were going to keep him out for longer periods of time than we were expecting. That's definitely been the case. So that's kind of frustrating, especially given the contracts that he's on, the no trade clause in his contract. But at the same time, a lot of it is also on the Suns. Like he put up 18, 5 and 4 last season in the third fiddle role, which is kind of what you would hope to expect from a third option on a team. You look at the Chris Bosches and the teams of the past that had big threes. The third guy wasn't putting up 25 points a game like he was during his time in Washington. And he did it on really good efficiency. He did whatever the team asked of him. And I think this year they brought in a traditional undersized point guard into the starting lineup, and the Suns starting lineups were undersized as a result. And I think Beal got kind of squeezed to the bench because they promised Tyus Jones a starting role, and now they're asking him to adjust his role again. So I think the injuries are definitely frustrating, but he has been, like you said, Dave, one of the best personalities off the court, one of the best teammates. He's been very supportive of Ryan Dunn, who took his starting spot. So in terms of his personality and locker room veteran leadership, he's definitely all of those things.
So, I mean, let's just like cut to the big question here, because I think it's like the Suns want to make a big deal here. They want Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler wants them, but you run into the no trade clause issue with Beal. Then there's like, okay, can you offload him to another team? You and I both wrote about this today. Like, is there another team that you could send him to? Would that be good for them? Would they want to take on a guy who's making $50 million a year plus and has a no trade clause? So just at this point, it seems like the Suns are, 15 toes in on this iteration of their team. They are just going for it. They want to make improvements. The only way to do that is to attach picks to Nurkic, Grayson Allen, or Bradley Beal. How does this trade deadline end for them? I mean, do you think they're going to pull something off here, or do you think they're just stuck with Beal because nobody wants him?
I think they pull something off, even if it doesn't involve deal like a blockbuster deal for a Jimmy Butler or for a Zach LaVine, who reportedly would be someone that they would be interested in if Butler falls through. I think one trade that we'll probably talk about that's come up is, the idea of swapping Nurkic for Pat Williams, and kind of exchanging bad money that neither side wants, and the Suns taking on a couple extra years, you guys getting off of that $18 million a year a couple years sooner. But I think they have to do something. I think Nurk at this point, he's been a good teammate by all accounts from what I've heard. But he's clearly disgruntled. He's clearly happy, and that type of thing, if it festers, can become a distraction, and it already has started to become one. So I think they've got to make some moves. They definitely still have multiple needs that they need to address if they want to get where they're trying to go. So even if it's not like a Butler blockbuster or a Zach LaVine trade, I think they have to do something before the trade deadline, and they probably will.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned, Yusuf Nurkic and everything that's been reported about him and his situation and the coach. What do you make about Beal? Like, I know he said through whatever channels, like, hey, if it's to the right team in the right situation, then I'll waive my no trade clause. But do you think his preference is still to stick it out with this Suns team, even with accepting maybe a lesser role, moving to a bench role? Or do you think he is trying to use the Jimmy Butler domino to find his way to a better situation?
I genuinely think his preference would be to stay here, just because from what we've heard about Beal and listening to him talk, he's very much a family guy. Like the prospect of uprooting him and his wife and his kids to move to another NBA city after they all moved out here to Phoenix. And, he talks very fondly about trying to get his kids in football and finding them a league out here and all these different things that they're kind of setting down roots here in Phoenix. I don't think he would want to just uproot all of them and go somewhere just to get out of the Suns situation. I think he's genuinely committed to helping this team win. And I think the fact that he's handled being moved to the bench speaks volumes about that. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of pride with a guy like that, who's been a multiple-time All-Star, who's put up 30 points a game twice in his career, being moved to a bench role for a vet minimum guy. That has to sting to a certain degree. So I think for the right situation, if it can be a competitive team, if he can have a more ironclad role, I do think he'd be willing to waive it for the right situation. But, like we've been saying, the question is, where is the right situation for Beal that's also the right situation for the team that's acquiring him?
In Chicago, we're used to dysfunction, here on our team.
Shout out.
Even when we were winning championships, sorry about that. Even when we were winning titles, we still were really a dysfunctional, team. So seeing what you guys are going through and seeing what you're dealing with Bradley Beal, even with Eubanks, I hate Eubanks, by the way. Even with that, those things, and even with Kevin Durant, and the things that are going on there. How do you all get through these kind of things, these kind of situations? Because I never looked at your organization as one that would, be on that level of dysfunction or anything like that. So how do you all deal with it now that you're going through it now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was kind of born in the darkness, to quote The Dark Knight Rises. I was here from like the dog days when this team, when you had Markieff Morris talking crap about Suns fans in the locker room. You had his brother throwing a towel at the head coach. You had Josh Jackson not showing up to a fan event and James Jones having to buy those fans alcohol from the local fries. Like I've seen some stuff in my time here. So this is fine for me. As long as the team's semi-competitive, I can handle it. I do think when you pair a lot of, some of the dysfunction you're talking about, some of the interviews that are coming out with the expectations that this fan base had going into the season, it can definitely feel like the world is collapsing a little bit. But at the end of the day, I get to watch Devin Booker and Kevin Durant play basketball on a nightly basis. And that alone, having those two as a core, it leads me to believe that they can restructure around those two somehow, even if it feels like they keep wheeling and dealing themselves in and out of corners.
What did you think of the trade with the Jazz to get 2031 pick to Utah and the three worst of Minnesota, Cleveland, and Utah? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
For that one pick, kind of trading the upside for the quantity. What was your take on that deal?
I'll be honest, I thought that meant the Suns had something lined up immediately, that they were needing extra picks in terms of quantity over quality. Because, when you only have one first round pick that you can trade for the next 7 years and it's way off in the distance when other teams think you're going to be terrible, that pick is going to have a lot of value. And so to some degree, it makes sense to split it up into lesser pieces so that, if you're trying to work out a multi-team Jimmy Butler trade or something like that, you can throw a pick here, you can throw a pick there. But they weren't able to get a deal done. So it does feel like they're valuing that flexibility, kind of unlocking the next 6 drafts in terms of what they can send out in trades. There's definitely value in that. And Matt Ishbia has been very upfront. He's always said, my job is to make sure that those picks way in the future don't have value because we're going to be competitive year in and year out. And as much as their draft situation looks a little shaky, I'm kind of inclined to believe him with the way that he continues to just find ways, he and this front office, to, like I said, wheel and deal themselves out of corners. So I thought a move was lined up, but I do think they're going to be aggressive in trying to put as many of those picks to good use as possible. And if they don't pull off a big move, maybe you keep your 25 first round pick, and yeah, it's going to be number 29 or number 30, but at least you got another rookie coming in on a cheap contract. And this front office, since Josh Bartelstein joined it, has been really good in the draft department.
Gerald, I think that what you just mentioned is what makes Bulls fans hesitant, to put it kindly, about contemplating a LaVine for Beal swap or bringing Beal in to then push LaVine to Milwaukee in a deal where you guys net Jimmy Butler. Because, yes, you stocked those 3 picks quantity-wise, and any teams involved in some sort of hypothetical blockbuster who are taking on contracts they don't want are going to want first-round draft capital to do so. And you're talking about, especially that 25 pick, assuming it's the Cavs' 29th, maybe, probably 30. And then who knows what happens in 27 and 29, but you're still probably looking at end of the first round picks. So Zach LaVine is playing like all-star caliber stuff, career high shooting efficiency numbers, 24, 5, and 5. Is it worth it for a couple of late first round picks to take on Beal and a worse contract and a worse player? That's what Bulls fans are saying when we see these talks about Beal coming to Chicago. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and I think it's a totally justifiable question for a Bulls fan to ask because, yes, you're pocketing 3 first rounders, but to your point, one of them is going to be dead near the end of the first round, possibly 29 at best. And then the other 2, like you mentioned, they could fall somewhere in that 20 to 30 range. There's no guarantee. Teams fall apart all the time, and there's a lot of time between now and then. But for you to take on Bradley Beal, you have to get your draft assets. I am curious your guys' thoughts, though, because this was one of the things I'm trying to gauge. If, let's say, Bradley Beal was interested in coming to the Bulls, waiving his no-trade clause to go there, and if the Bulls were actually okay with taking on Beal, as long as they get the 3 firsts and offload Patrick Williams for Yusuf Nurkic in a separate deal, is that something that you would consider? You take on Beal's salary, but you get off of Pat Williams, you get Nurk at similar money, but for less years, you get 3 firsts. Is that a yes or a no on your front? Because I have conflicted emotions about it, and obviously I'm coming from a different perspective than you guys are.
I would say no. I think just Patrick Williams playing as poorly as he is right now, it's just the wrong time to try to move him. He played well last night coming off the bench. I just think like the Bulls are not in a position right now to be giving up young players that, and look, Bulls fans are probably in the comments like calling me crazy because he's been really just not good this year. There's no way to sugarcoat it, but I don't think that the Bulls are in a position right now where they can offload young talent, even if that young talent has disappointed. I think the more interesting question is just in a larger, 4 or 5 team construction where the Bulls get Beal, the Suns get Jimmy Butler. What are the picks that the Bulls get back in that? And is the 3, picks that you just are mentioning enough? To me, I would probably say no. I would probably want like an unprotected 2031 pick from the Bucks. If LaVine ends up going there, like there needs to be a little bit more upside just because like you said, I mean, the 29th pick is not doing a whole bunch for me. And even though it could be like somewhere in the low 20s, the fact that the 27 and 29 picks are worst of 3 teams, there's just not enough upside there that to me, like the delta between how well Zach is playing and then the damage of having to take on Beal in this no trade clause, I think they could try to like rehab his value and flip him down the line, but that's just such a big risk and it inhibits you so much that I would be looking for more upside than just those Suns pick personally.
Yeah, I feel about the same.
Me too.
About the same. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's hard to contemplate. I am curious though, Gerald, you mentioned it earlier and you also wrote about it this morning. The whole like, if they can't get Jimmy because Jimmy's asking price for Miami drops and then other teams get involved and Jimmy gets taken away from Phoenix, that there's maybe some interest in LaVine as an alternative to Jimmy to add to this Suns team that, Goat said is not just tripling but quadrupling down. What do you make of what is being said about their interest in LaVine right now?
Yeah, it is interesting to me, and it kind of speaks volumes to how poorly they view Bradley Beal's fit here. Because I mean, LaVine is unquestionably the better player at this point. He fits his shot profile with the volume of threes that he's taking, with the efficiency that he's had this year, having a career year in that respect would fit, the Suns' third fiddle role a little bit better in my book. I am curious how he would respond to kind of going from being that guy to being kind of a tertiary role and more of a spot up shooter kind of role. Because I know there's been a lot of talk about him as a movement shooter in Chicago and how that went. But I do think it makes sense to a certain degree, but it doesn't fix the Suns' problems. They're basically just trading one shooting guard that might not be a good fit for another. I do think defensively you're regressing a little bit going from Beal to LaVine. And I think LaVine has been better on that end this season, but it's just strange for me. You're taking on a lesser contract. You're getting the healthier, better player. I understand all that, but it doesn't feel like you're addressing what the team actually needs. And it's more so for me at that point about moving Beal's contract, which, if the Bulls aren't getting anything good out of it, first round picks that aren't that valuable to them, and you're giving up basically all your draft capital to make what kind of amounts to a slightly better lateral move. I don't see the fit personally, but I do think that they would be interested in him as a fallback option if Butler falls through.
What do you think of the Butler fit with Phoenix?
Oh man,
that was a telling side, Gerald.
I'm scared. I don't like the drama, but I also kind of enjoy covering it, if that makes sense. So I feel like Butler would be entertaining. There's no doubt about that. You guys have seen firsthand how entertaining Jimmy Butler is. I would worry about the 2 or 3 year contract you're going to have to pay him over the summer if you trade for him, because that's probably the main reason he wants to come to Phoenix. He knows that Matt Moneybags Ishbia is going to spend up to keep him. But this dude's 35 years old. He misses an average of like 18 to 20 games a year. And every location basically in his career that he's left, he's sort of left on very animated terms, I guess you could say. So I have my concerns. I do think this team kind of needs a fire lit under them. Jimmy Butler can be that more than any individual player in the NBA that I could probably name. And he is a playoff riser, and he fits better as a wing player than, another shooting guard, undersized shooting guard. So he would fit a lot of what the Suns need, and they're dead last in getting to the rim. Jimmy Butler puts his head down, he drives, he gets to the rim. So I think he could help them in a lot of respects, but I am a little iffy on some of what it would take to get him and what it would take to keep him happy.
Oh, yes. You mentioned Bradley Beal and Nurkic, as far as, and obviously the draft picks, as far as things you're willing to give up, to get these players in. Is there anyone else on this Suns roster that you're looking at that you are willing to part with?
I think Grayson's been the big one that has come up a lot. He's starting to look a lot more like the. Yeah, no, I get it. I know this is a Bulls podcast. I should choose my words very carefully on this show. But I think he's gotten back to last year's efficiency when he led the league in 3-point percentage. He's slowly been creeping up to like 44-45% again. So he's having a good year despite adjusting to a bench role. I think he would have some value, especially, you look at a team like Orlando, dead last in 3-point shooting. They could use a guy like a Grayson Allen to help them on that front without having to necessarily attach something to him. So if you're trying to wheel and deal, maybe add to your draft cachet, you ship Grayson for a first, and then you throw that in a bigger Jimmy Butler trade. He's kind of the guy that I'm looking at. The one guy I don't want them to even consider is Ryan Dunn. You could easily attach Ryan Dunn's salary in a separate transaction, just a vet minimum type swap for his very low rookie scale deal to kind of sweeten the pot for someone. I am praying that they are not even considering that because as much as we talk about first round picks, Ryan Dunn is the guy that if I'm other teams, I'm asking Phoenix about in a separate deal.
Gerald, before we let you go, buddy, how is our guy Steven working out since coming over and joining the PHNX crew? Working hard?
Steven has been great. That man knows ball unlike any other. I'm sure you guys are familiar with his game already. He's been doing video breakdowns for us, written breakdowns. He's a lot smarter than pretty much everybody else on our show. So he is elevating all of us on this show, and we love it.
I think it was a week or so ago. I was up late night on Twitter, and I saw him. He was, doing video breakdowns of a low man weak side defensive rotation from Kevin Durant. And I was like, this is Kevin freaking Durant, and you're cutting clips of him as a low man defender making proper rotation. There's only one person I know talking hoops to do that, and it is Steven. I'm glad that he's working out for y'all over there. We miss him. Please give him our best, would you?
I will, absolutely. And you guys take care until we get to see each other again in Vegas next summer.
Oh, we can feel the warmth. We can feel the warmth. Bulls Nation, if you want Suns intel until we figure out what happens with Butler, with Beal, with all this, follow our guy Gerald at Gerald Bourguet on Twitter. Take it easy, buddy. Tell the Phoenix crew we said hello.
Will do. You guys take care.
My God.
All righty. We will go to break there, come back, break down what we heard, what else is going on with this Phoenix stuff, and then get to more intel on Vooch and Lonzo. Trades. Hit the like button. Do it.
Slap.
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 Bow.
I saw that happening. How? Because I was looking through these. That's why. I knew it. Right on optics, ladies and gentlemen. Gonna get you holding that goat. Yeah. Look how they look at Goat's hand. Just amazing. Pop the top. Boom. Got to keep the eyes right. That's straight. Go and take a look through. Tell us what you see.
I'll take off these ones too.
Oh, that's going to be important. Got to keep it right. Tell us what you're seeing out of there, sir. What you see?
The future.
What's in the future, Will?
A trade.
Ooh, is it a trade that you like?
I felt it in my bones, and now I'm seeing it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. You're gonna have to.
Is it one you like?
I don't know yet. Probably not.
I was going to say it's goat, so probably not.
Fair point. No matter what outdoor activities you prefer, it is always important to have the best view. Right On Optics offers a full range of optics products so you can see clearly. Everyone, and I mean everyone, can use a good pair of binoculars. Right On offers a higher performance at a lower price, the perfect balance of performance and value, and they will not, I repeat, they will not break the bank. They have been around for over a decade, and every product receives a full quality control inspection. And this is important. They have the Right On Promise Unlimited Lifetime Warranty. Not only covers the defects, but also accidental damage from drops. Quality products, that you can trust. Still amazing in those, though. Hold on, get yourself right.
So I just adjusted the scope, and I actually am starting to like the trade a little bit better.
Right On Optics, y'all. Check out the full line of Right On products today at rightonoptics.com/CHGO. That's RITON optics.com/CHGO. Right On Optics. I see you.
Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Circa Sportsbook. Guys, Super Bowl.
Peck. Super Bowl.
It's right around the corner.
It's right there.
We got it. We got our matchup.
It's happening.
Chiefs Eagles.
Called it.
Rematch of 2 Super Bowls ago, right?
Yes.
We got Jalen Hurts. We got Mahomes. We got all those guys who are great at catching the footballs and running the footballs. What's more fun than a Super Bowl? Betting on the Super Bowl, obviously. And the place to do that is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports is sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service, featuring actual human beings. How nice is that? Bet on all of your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, in-game betting. Circa Sports has it all. Fun to bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 and older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right.
Hold on.
Before y'all,
Everybody stop what you're doing.
Katie, approach the mic.
Katie has something to
Everybody
say.
see, I don't want to talk now because you pissed me off. Before you guys get into your next
And I'm
topic,
doing my
I
job.
don't want to talk now. 'Cause
these
you-
likes are pitiful.
It's a like?
Guys, there's 160 people watching. We only have 30 likes.
Oh, my goodness.
What
Forget
is
the likes.
Can
happening?
I flex for a second?
Do it, Will.
Today, when I was hosting the All NBA show
Flex.
with Tim Legler,
Great stuff.
we got over 100 likes for the first time in apparently months on that show. So
Really?
that means you
It's-
guys need to step up your game.
It
I
was
was
the
one
quaff.
of them.
It was.
Thank you.
No offense to our guy Adam Mara.
You can't
who's
hate me that
usually
much, though.
co-hosting
Yeah.
that with Legler. You know, Adam's not an ugly man,
Mhm.
but he doesn't have the quaff.
It's quaff. It was Legler and Goat.
Quaff.
It's
I
the
mean,
hair
come
off.
on.
Are you kidding me?
There's
That's just a
there's a lot
screen
of hair
full
on
of
that
beautiful.
A lot of hair on that show.
A lot of hair going on, man.
But yes, on this show too, we like likes. We need likes. We would like likes.
More likes.
Please hit the like.
Just trying to save your life because Katie does not like when you don't give likes.
This is true.
Trying to help.
And you know, we didn't bug you in the first segment of the show because we were too busy talking to our buddy Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
But now
Good stuff on
we're
the
done
Suns.
talking with Gerald. Yes,
That's
hit the
awesome.
like. Hit the like
Suns
for the
are
intel we got from our
fascinating
guy
team.
over there in Phoenix.
Massive.
Massively fascinating.
I'm glad that he's not like delusional because
I'm
oftentimes
glad
like,
that he's not delusional. Great headline.
Bulls fans tend to do this too. We could be guilty of this when we're talking about trades. When you know, people in our comments or on Twitter will be like, "Why can't we just like trade Patrick for Nikola Jokic?" It's like two teams need to look at a trade and like what they're getting.
The question you always have to ask yourself when you're making fake trades, and believe me, I do this a lot, is why is the other team doing this?
Right,
Mm.
right. And so,
Right on. Right on optics.
you know, I think Gerald is being realistic in the sense that, like, yeah,
Oh,
it's a hard sell for the Bulls to
Yeah.
want to take on that Beal contract.
Yeah.
And
very.
give up a Zach LaVine playing like an all-star right now,
Mhm.
and the return being at most 3 first-round picks that this year for sure and very possibly 27 and 29
Mhm.
will be lower on the totem pole picks as far as where they're picking them from.
And it just comes back to this idea of like, if you're Arturis, what are you looking for in these deals? And we just don't have a good sense of that right now. Are late first round picks sufficient? Do you want second round picks? Do you want to clear your books and not take back any bad salary? If you didn't want Zeke Najee's bad money, why do you want Bradley Beal's? So there's just so many questions that I don't think there is a perfect solution out there. Nothing like the perfect deal is not going to materialize in front of Arturis and save the day. Like that's just not really, I think, how it's going to happen. And so you're going to have to make some concessions. What are those? Are you going to feel comfortable with saying, okay, we'll take on some bad money and get several protected first round picks or late first round picks?
Mhm.
Is that enough? Or is it more important to you to clear your cap and, you know, put yourself in position to maybe be a player in free agency in a year or two? And I think that's really what's going to be interesting to me is if we do see any trades, what is that going to say about what Arturis values here?
Mm.
We learned from the Caruso and Giddey trade, what he valued was not a first round pick in that deal, but instead a young veteran. And is that going to be something that he looks for? Or does now he feel he needs to prioritize draft capital, or does he need to prioritize the cap sheet? So just kind of fascinating to think about it from the perspective of like, what does Arturis value? What is sufficient value in this deal?
It's a great point. You can tell you've been hanging out with Tim Legler, so that's an excellent point right there. And you're right. We'll find that out because we have an idea of just as far as players, what the type of things that he likes. We kind of got that, but trade deadlines, like we really have no idea. You know what I'm saying? What he really values and what he really wants. Like you said, well, is it the picks? What is it? The braids? Is it the picks or is it the players? And I'm hoping, God willing, it is the picks that he wants and comes out with. But this is going to be very telling for him because also, Will, there's still a possibility he does nothing
Yeah.
So there's still that. So we'll figure out everything we need to know about AK and the type of GM he is and the type of team that he thinks he has after this deadline. I think it will become much more clearer now, because before he was just leaning on belief and hope and, nah, man, we going to the playoffs. This is what's going to happen. Well, now you can't, put your head down and just keep running into that wall. Now you've got to make some decisions now. And yeah, the decisions that he makes in the next couple of weeks or these next coming weeks are going to be very telling, man.
Telling indeed. I think, generally speaking, Bulls fans have not been a fan of this Beal idea. And I think it's fair to not be a fan of it.
I'm coming around on it a little bit.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Let's do it.
I wrote about it.
Him, Tim Legler?
I wrote about it all today on the site. But basically, for the right price, I am more open to taking on that kind of money. And if the right price, and as I said with Gerald, I need one pick with real upside. If the idea that I constructed was basically a 5-team trade where LaVine goes to the Bucks, Butler goes to the Suns, Beal comes to the Bulls, Middleton and Bobby Portis go to the Heat with one of the picks from the Suns, and then a 5th team, whether it's the Raptors or the Wizards or the Pistons, one of those salary teams can absorb Pat Connaughton to make it all legal. If the Bulls are able to get the Bucks 2031 unprotected pick, I would feel pretty good about that. And then 1 or 2 more of these Suns picks. To me, that's probably on the line of worth it. I wouldn't be mad if they did it. I wouldn't be mad if they didn't. But you're just not going to get a haul of picks for Zach. And if you want picks, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to the question of well, what does AK want? And if picks is the answer, then that's the way to do it to me. And I'm not saying that's a great trade or that I would feel really inspired by it. I think you would try to rehab Beal's value, say, get as many shots up as you want here in Chicago. We don't have a lot going on. You can, play as well as you want, but it's okay if you miss some games because we're trying to keep our pick anyway. And then maybe with a year left on his deal or next trade deadline, you're able to flip him again for positive or neutral value. Or maybe you just waive him and you buy him out for the last year of his deal and you're off of it. But I don't know. I think there is value in getting picks. And even if it's, the 29th pick this year, that's another young player that you can add to the roster and move forward with. And I think that there is value in that. So again, I don't think that there's a lot of upside in the Suns picks. And that's why getting that 31 Bucks pick would be really important to me. And let's say AK's 2031 is kind of a ways away. I'm not really interested in a pick that far down the line being the main thing. Well, maybe you can do what the Suns did and flip that pick, which I think would have a ton of value around the league, to another team that has multiple picks. The Thunder, for example, were rumored to be interested in that Suns pick. Maybe they flip you the Philadelphia pick that they have this year that's top 6 protected. That Philly pick cannot be number 1, but the Bucks pick could be in 2031. And they've got a million picks. Maybe they want to kick the can down the road a little bit. And now that starts to kickstart your rebuild a little bit. You get some younger guys in here a little bit sooner and you can start building forward. So I don't think it's a great deal, but if you can get 2 or 3 first-round picks, even if a couple of them are on the lower side of the first round, I don't know. I think there's definitely use in considering that. And then obviously last night we learned from Fred Katz of The Athletic that Beal is not interested in Chicago. I'm not sure that I buy that. Not necessarily because I think he's really interested in coming to the Bulls, but my thing with Beal in this whole situation, and I know I'm rambling here, so I'll kick it back to you guys in a second, but nobody wants him. So if there's one team that wants him and the Suns are pushing him out and they're saying you're coming off the bench or maybe you just won't play at all, and they're really trying to get him to waive his no trade clause, and 29 teams are saying no thanks, and the Bulls are saying for the right price, sure. What choice does Beal really have?
Yeah, a billionaire BE in the comments saying Beal's in the discussion, even though he stated he wouldn't go to Chicago. And you just mentioned that report from Fred Katz of The Athletic. I don't know, Katie, if you have that excerpt that you want to throw up. In case you guys missed it, here's the gist. This is from Fred Katz, The Athletic. Phoenix Suns guard Bradley Beal will not waive his no-trade clause to go to the Chicago Bulls. A source familiar with the 3-time All-Stars thinking told The Athletic. There are destinations Beal would consider approving. However, cold weather cities, including Chicago, are less attractive to him. If a team is if a team has a losing record and a chilly winter, it won't be on Beal's list, which I think is just some of the most hilarious stuff I've ever heard.
So he's fine with a losing team as long as it's warm weather.
If it's a warm weather losing team,
Correct.
Maybe.
One
But,
weather loser,
you know,
cold
Wonder he
team
wants to stay in
winner.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
but yeah, so to answer
playing better
Billionaire's
weather.
question from the comments, like, yes, we all heard that reporting yesterday. And according to people close to Beal, he would not waive the no trade clause to come to the Bulls. But we still have 9 days, right? A week from Thursday is the trade deadline. A lot of things can change in 9 days.
And as Gerald said, there's a lot of posturing going on right now.
Right. And speaking of posturing, the Heat swore they were never trading Jimmy Butler. Then what happened 2 days later?
Well, not only
Things
that,
changed.
and they lowered their price for him as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, they lowered their price today, according to Brian Windhorst. But even before that, even before we're lowering our asking price for Jimmy, it went from we're never trading Jimmy to, oh, God, okay, we're going to trade Jimmy. And that happened pretty freaking quickly. So, yes, the reporting that came out yesterday said Beal's not coming to the Bulls because he's not going to waive his no-trade clause to go there. You were just saying, Beal might look around and listen to people who know things and figure out. And that's why I asked Gerald about, like, can you get a sense of if Beal is indeed happy in Phoenix versus how badly he might want out to a better situation or just a different situation? Because that might mean he could change his mind about that no trade clause if he takes a look around and sees what his perhaps very limited options are.
You know, I love this so much because this is like 2 a.m. at the club logic.
Oh, yeah.
This is the best. This is the club's about to close. It's shutting down. You ain't really, been that lucky there, but the beast is standing there next to the bar. Just saying. You make your move on it, man. It's up to you. That is 2 a.m. logic. Shout out, man.
But just, I mean, think about like what his options actually are. He could stay in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Right? Like that, there's always that fallback. But again, he's already coming off the bench, and maybe he just calls their bluff and thinks, maybe he'll get back in the starting lineup, or maybe they're benching Nurkic right now. He is out of the rotation.
He is.
Like, if they do that with Beal, is he more happy there not playing than he would be in Chicago playing? I don't know. And like, it's the same with some of these other teams. Like, a winning team is not going out and trading for him because the contract is just too detrimental. It's not to say that he's a bad player. I think he's overpaid, but like, the situation is what it is. It's a similar thing to what we had been talking about with LaVine for a year. He just hasn't been able to shake that. And so maybe he sees what Zach has done here in Chicago and says, I could do that too. And then maybe next year, or, in a year and a half, he's able to get moved to a winning situation on the final year of his deal.
Hey, Bradley.
All right. Well, so if that covers all of the Beal and Zach stuff for now, we can move on because there's other new stuff to get to.
Is perfect for the Heat.
What's that?
Yeah, he's a Heatle.
Yeah.
Who's a Heatle?
No, I said Bobby Portis is perfect for the Heat.
Oh my God!
Perfect.
Are you kidding me?
Perfect.
Crazy eyes.
Perfect for the Heat.
Him
Nah,
and
that's
Bam
Heat-
together
that's Heat
would
culture.
just be so
Heat culture.
funny.
Dude, that'd be good stuff.
We do have a few new tidbits on the Bulls' other former All-Star, Nikola Vucevic. So let's get to that now. Our guy Marc Stein of DLLS, as well as his great Stein Line Substack, which you should subscribe to, had some new tidbits. Basically, the stuff about Vooch and the Warriors was the same. Stein said, the Bulls still continuing to seek a first, but the Warriors have, despite being at the front lines of the potential Vooch suitor list for weeks, have to date been unwilling to surrender more than second-round draft capital. Here's some new stuff Stein had about Vooch and the Lakers. I don't know if you have that one, too, that you want to throw up, Katie. Anthony Davis made it clear last week in an ESPN interview that he would like to see the Lakers acquire a center who enables Davis to play more minutes at power forward. Yet, league sources stressed over the weekend that the Lakers are not expected to join the hunt for either Vooch or the Raptors' Jakob Poeltl. Jakob. So that's Stein saying he's not hearing that the Lakers are, dialing up AK every 5 minutes saying, what about this for Vooch? What about this for Vooch? But again, just like I was saying about Beal, I think that could change. It just depends on if other avenues the Lakers might be looking down close up.
Yeah, and the Lakers are also winning right now. They're on a 4-game winning streak. Anthony Davis just put up 43 and 24 against the team, and they're playing Philly tonight. Come on, Philly. So yeah, they're feeling really good about themselves. I believe they're in the top 6 right now as far as the playoff seedings are concerned. They feel good about where they are. Let's see it after a couple of these tough losses, especially if they're losses because you have no interior help, especially if something, and God forbid, I hope this doesn't happen, something goes down with Anthony Davis where he's not able to finish a game and he's able to come back next week, he's just not able to finish a game. Like, you'll be looking and your fans will be talking about Nikola Vucevic, and Lakers fans just want the best. They always want the best. And right now, that's Vooch. If we're looking at big men, he is the best one available. So, yeah, I'm cool with how they feel right now. There's plenty of time on the clock. Take your time, you know what I'm saying? Walk, don't run. But I think it's still, on their radar for sure.
Yeah, I think probably on their radar. I think similar to the Warriors, like they would like him for the right price, but are not going to feel comfortable giving up one of their 2 remaining first-round picks unprotected. So I think that's the real issue with Vooch is like he's clearly playing like a guy who is an all-star, who deserves to get a first-round pick back in return. But in the current cap climate, it's just difficult to justify that, especially if you're one of these teams that always has these big plans of we're going to be the next Giannis team or we're going to be the next KD team. Like, it's hard to do the next thing when that maybe inhibits you from being able to make one of those bigger moves. Now, the thing with Vooch is he's under contract next year. So if you trade for him now, he maybe helps you this year, keeps you afloat, gets you into the playoffs, and then you can use that $20 million to package together with another guy to go out and get somebody. But if you don't have that pick, then that becomes a little bit more difficult. So it's a bit of a challenge with Vooch. I think right now, my guess, this is just complete speculation of what's going on, is the Bulls and the Warriors are negotiating and talking about Bulls want a first-round pick. Warriors don't want to do that. And the Bulls are saying, well, sorry, we're not going to give up Vooch for anything less at this point. And the Warriors are saying, well, we're not going to give you that. So it's kind of at an impasse. But maybe there's a point where the Warriors decide, okay, it's worth it for us to give up a lottery protected first. That turns into 2 seconds if the Warriors don't make the playoffs. And that would be a huge win for the Bulls. It looks like they got a first-round pick for Vooch. Likely will end up being 2 seconds. But that's the kind of deal that satisfies both parties, ultimately gets both teams what they were looking for in a way that I think, works out for both sides. And on trade deadline day, maybe both teams kind of come to terms with that being the best case for both of them.
But do you like this strategy by the Bulls if they're digging their heels in on this as far as Golden State? Because Golden State's a game and a half out of the playoffs right now. Is it smart for the Bulls to be digging in?
I think so, just because what if a center gets hurt between now and next Thursday, and all of a sudden another team comes in and says, well, actually, Vooch could keep us alive until the playoffs. And now the Warriors really have to give up a pick.
Yeah, and hypothetically beats the Warriors' offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's likely, or obviously don't wish injuries upon anyone, but anything could happen. And I think given where the Bulls are in the standings, they're too far away from the 9th seed. That's not really realistic. They're still, they're ahead of 7 and 8 in the Tankathon order, but it's not out of the question for them to move that direction, especially if they trade Vooch. So an extra 3-4 games against some good teams this week. You got Celtics, Raptors are playing well. I can't remember the third one, but I think at this point in the season, it's fine. If it was earlier on in the season, then maybe you play it more like the Nets did and accept the 2 second-round picks for Dennis Schroeder and for Dorian Finney-Smith, and you just start the tank, and now you're going towards the bottom. But it's too late, I think, in the season for the Bulls to really do that. And so now at this point, you just try to hold out for that first and see if anybody budges.
You mentioned the fact that Vooch does have another year and that could complicate things hypothetically with the Lakers. Stein mentioned that in his reporting this morning as well, saying that, and man, I did not know this, but it makes sense because of the names. Anthony Davis and LeBron James are taking up 2/3 of the Lakers' salary cap next season and have strained to stay below the second apron this season. So absorbing that 21.5 for Vooch next season would really put them in a bind, in addition to maybe having to sacrifice draft capital to Chicago to bring him in. He also said that, some of these other names of big men on the market right now, and Dave, I think you are right. Vooch is the best and is playing the best of any of them right now. Supposedly, according to Stein sources, Toronto's really not that hot to trade Jakob Poeltl. They would prefer to keep him. He's making a little bit less money than Vooch, but he is under contract via player option next season for 19.5, as opposed to Vooch's 21.5. And then there's that other name that's been thrown around a lot, which is, of course, Jonas Valanciunas.
Double.
Yeah.
I think the Wizards signed Valanciunas for a 3-year deal so that if it didn't work out this year, they could roll it over to next.
Right.
I think there's some posturing probably going on with Toronto. Like they're playing more competitively, but they want to be at the top of the draft too.
Sure.
And so if it costs you Jakob Poeltl or Kelly Olynyk or whatever it may be, I think they'd ultimately be okay with doing that. But again, posturing to try to drive up the value. If I don't want to trade my guy and you really want him, you got to give me a good reason to do that.
Yeah. All I keep hearing on either side is how bad do you want it? How bad you want the draft pick? How bad you want to win?
Right.
Either side.
All right, we got to shout out a couple more sponsors really quick. When we come back, we'll wrap up with the latest on what's going on and what's being said about Lonzo Ball. Hit the like. Stay tuned. Here's some ads.
Slap.
Today's show brought to you by our friends at Ray Chevy. Save on a new car for you and stick to your New Year's goals by shopping Ray's Resolution going on all month long at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake. Head in today to shop their huge selection of new Chevy models with special New Year's prices. Right now, you can take 10 to 20% off MSRP on select Chevy models and shop over 125 of their vehicles priced under $20,000. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the entire Midwest, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest inventories. So visit our partner this January at their location on Route 12 in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. And, of course, you know about that raise price promise.
I do.
The guarantee that they make to you to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever before with no price changing, no add-ons, no hidden fees. Hi, I'm a hidden fee. No, get out. Ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about right now. The same prices you can expect to see when you shop Ray Chevy in-store and online. Shop those great prices on new Chevys with Ray's Resolution going on all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
Phew.
Pew.
Let's drive to Hooters.
Okay.
That's what we need to drive to. Why? Because they got something for everybody. You know, Matt.
Chicken.
Goat.
Yum,
We'll do
yum.
some of that too. Katie. And beer. All those things. Meat, shrimp. They got all of it, man.
$6 marks?
Oh, hand it over. That's what Hooters is bringing you, man, because there's no better combination than Chicago Sports and Hooters. What makes original Hooters so special? They care about the people. They care about the food they serve, their guests, and, of course, the community. Oh, you know what? Your wallet, go ahead and sit it right here. You ain't going to need that, baby. You're going to need a lot. Because you can grab Hooters chicken tenders and fries or chicken tender tacos and fries for just $9.99 each. You heard what the hell I said. And if you're feeling real bold, you can try Hooters' new mango habanero wang sauce. Toss your wings and tenders in this sweet and spicy kickstart to 2025. Dive into Hooters' new shareable apps. They got those crispy pickle fries and those warm, salty pretzels. And as Matt just mentioned, that $6 holler, man. The legendary $6 margarita, available all day, every day. You can chill on your favorite teams from any of the 11 Chicagoland locaciones. It's not a word. You can even order online for pickup and delivery. You can check them out at Original Hooters. That's originalhooters.com.
All right, y'all. On to Lonzo Ball. Who's just been playing exceptionally well, has been moved into the starting lineup at times recently with the absence of Kobe White. And, you know, when Io was down with that calf, played, close to starters minutes in their game last night. Scored, what was it, 16 points? 17 points?
17.
And so Forbes NBA guy Evan Sidery had this, it was either last night or earlier today. I mean, the list of teams that are theoretically calling the Bulls about Lonzo, Clippers, Heat, Hornets, Lakers, Magic, Pistons, Timberwolves have all held exploratory talks with the Bulls centered on Lonzo. Chicago will be open to moving Ball's expiring contracts in exchange for second-round draft capital. We heard some similar reporting, I believe, from our guy Joe Cowley not that long ago as far as what the Bulls would be looking for in a Lonzo Ball deal because of that expiring and the way he's been playing and proven his health, which, again, biggest story of all of this. Kudos and praise to Lonzo. Happy for him in the season he's having. Then there was this weird thing that, in case you missed, was on ESPN radio in Cleveland. No one goes to Cleveland on vacation. Where Brian Windhorst said, quote, two guys who could be bought out that fit the bill when talking about what the Cavs could be looking to add are Lonzo Ball and Ben Simmons.
Okay.
We can throw Ben Simmons away for now because we don't need to talk about him. It's the fact that
Forever.
what?
Throw him away forever.
I mean, just somewhere where he's happy. Hopefully. I mean, not that I care tremendously about Ben Simmons' happiness. Guy's got squillions of dollars. Good for him. But Lonzo Ball.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was curious that Windhorst mentioned a buyout. Like, to me, that does not make sense. I'm trying to do the math on that. Like, if there are teams willing to give the Bulls even second-round draft capital because they want Lonzo on a half-season loaner for a playoff team
Right.
and maybe interested in re-signing him, and the Bulls have decided themselves, happy for Lonzo, but time to move on somewhere else.
Yeah.
Focusing on the youth, whatever. I'm just saying, if that's what the Bulls are thinking right now,
Uh-huh.
why would they buy him out instead of getting that second-round draft capital that's theoretically available?
Well, I think they wouldn't do that unless they couldn't get anything for him, right? So if you make him available and there are no takers, deadline passes, now maybe you start to think about a buyout. But for me, like, I just would rather try to extend him on a team-friendly deal, get him for 2 or 3 years, as I know I've said this before,
Yeah.
on like a cheaper dollar amount with some injury protections, and then try to move him after another 6-8 months where he's played now a full season or a full season and a half. He continues to look good. The knees, no problem. And he's playing 28 minutes a game maybe next year. Like, then maybe you're looking at a protected first. And to me, that's a lot more exciting than a second or a buyout. And so I would be thinking not just about like, because I think a lot of people are like, blow it up, trade whatever you can for all these guys, and then have just like a bunch of random players on the roster going into next year, be okay being bad. I think that's fine. But I also think it would be smart to think about acquiring guys or keeping guys that could have value down the line and rehabilitating them and then trying to turn them into picks, because that's really, I think, how you get yourself into a position where you have picks coming in the future. And that's really what this team needs. I mean, they need picks now, but they need guys that can potentially turn into picks later as well. And so to me, I'm looking at either trying to keep him or extend him, because obviously he's looked great, but I think with a year and a half back from that knee injury, now teams are looking at him like he's a real player, and, you know, on a cheaper deal, that's really valuable.
I just don't think he'll sign it. I think that's my other thing. I don't think he'll agree to it. I think if teams, it was about 8-9 teams that have shown interest in him right now. And I think if the season ends, he's not going to be looking to take less money if a team is willing to give him more. So, and he shouldn't, because as I said to you last time, he's at a different stage of his life where he's come back from the dead, and so he knows how fragile his NBA career is. So if you still have an opportunity to make the most money while you're doing your NBA career, I think he will absolutely go for that. Instead of taking a lesser deal on a team that I expect, and I'm sure you guys expect, to not be a great team next year. And I think that's the right move, to be honest with you. I think it's a better move for him and his career to get what he can right now at the age he is and see if he can play for a team that's a little bit better, because he doesn't have to worry about exposure. He's Lonzo Ball. He's the exposure wherever he goes. So I think it'll be about that money for him more so than it ever has been in his career.
I think he obviously will want to make money. I just don't know that, like, number one team next year is going to have cap space to sign guys. So he's not going to get more than the full mid-level exception, which is $12 million, and 12.8, I think this year, maybe a little bit higher next year. I just don't know that teams are going to be ready to pay for a guy who's like got a new knee. I think that there's going to be some concern around that, and that the Bulls should be the ones that are willing to take on the risk now so that they can potentially get the reward later. If that isn't available to them and Lonzo doesn't want to sign there, so be it. And then maybe you look to buy him out, or maybe you trade him for whatever you can get. And he's extension eligible now, from what I understand. And so they can be having these conversations already. But yeah, I would just be, not to say that that's going to happen or that another offer won't be better for him elsewhere in terms of free agency, but that's how the Bulls should be approaching this, is like, how can we put ourselves in position to get guys who can flip into picks?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I think if it was less teams that were after him now, I would probably agree with you more.
But like the
there
Timberwolves,
are a lot of teams that want that.
What were the
now.
teams that you mentioned?
Clippers, Heat,
They're an
Hornets,
apron team.
Lakers,
Heat are an apron
Magic,
team. Lakers are an
Pistons,
apron team.
T-Wolves.
Mhm.
Pistons have space. I just don't know
And when I say
where
that,
the money is coming from.
But when I say that, I'm talking about that him right now. I don't know how many more teams are going to want him. You know what I'm saying? When the season is over, I'm saying if he's generating this much interest right now, I don't see how it becomes a lesser thing.
Yeah, and if you can get a good package for him, go for it. The whole point is to get picks. So,
And our guy Fish in the comments saying that he likes your idea as far as keeping Lonzo on a new deal, but Fish said I don't want to take the risk, and that's kind of where my head is right now because I see the logic of what you're saying. Hey, Lonzo can be here. Somebody else in the comments was just talking about him being a great vet mentor and teacher for the younger guys if they continue to move through this youth movement in the post Zach and Vooch era. And I mean, like, we talk about Lonzo's basketball IQ all the time. He would be great to have around to make young players better.
I'm
by
not
being
talking
with them on the
about
floor.
keeping him to be around. I'm talking about keeping him to trade him later.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but keeping him around so much so at least to sign him to a new deal. He's on an expiring.
Sure. But
Even if
not
that's
like
the goal
long-term.
to get first-round draft capital for him instead of second because you keep him on a new deal, play for a little while, and then trade him further down the road. Fish saying, makes me a little nervous, makes me a little nervous too. And it could be what makes a lot of other teams, maybe 29 other teams out there, nervous to sign Lonzo to any kind of multi-year deal.
It's a risk either way.
He's healthy now. He's playing now.
Yeah.
And we all love that and are happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
It's
curious
a risk either way. Go ahead.
how much you guys think his minutes restriction is playing into this, because we know he's healthy. Like aside from the wrist this year, he hasn't had any issues aside from regular off days. But it's so difficult for me to see a team trading for him when he's on a minutes restriction, especially if you are a playoff team, knowing that that minutes restriction probably isn't just going to go away in the playoffs, and you need him out there for not only his defense but his playmaking. Like, I'm curious if you guys feel that same way, because I feel like it's so much harder to give up assets for a guy who is on a minutes restriction like he is.
I don't, because if the minutes restriction was 15, I think I'd feel that way. But with the minutes restriction basically being 25, and he's coming off the bench anyway, like that's a lot of minutes for a guy coming off the bench. And so I can live with that. And you can cheat with that, even if you want to put him in the starting lineup and then sit him down for a little bit and then bring him back in when you can feel the game is getting close. I'm talking about postseason.
Right.
When you can feel the game is changing and feel the game is getting close. You can kind of cheat with that with Lonzo. It's a really good point for sure. But I think with the fact that he's playing a nice amount of minutes now and just looking very spry and looking very nice right now, I think they'll take that risk right now in this
I mean,
trade
they
deadline.
started Lonzo slow on that minutes restriction, and you're right to point it out, Katie. But just since December 30th, let's start there. Lonzo's minutes in the games that he's played: 26, 23, 25, 24, 19, 22, 25, 25, 25, 26, 23, 24, 25. Like, if you're looking to add him as a quality rotation piece for a playoff-bound team,
Steady.
that, I think, is something you can believe in.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my point with this is how many guys in the league right now who are playing 25 minutes a game are giving you excess value at $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, Josh Hart's making 14 and he's playing 48 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Like, I still think he's making a lot of money for what he's able to provide. And then on top of that, you're talking about the injury risk, which obviously is, substantial.
Sure.
Right.
And so if you can get him on 10 or 12 million, if you give him the full mid-level exception, teams can trade for that. They can absorb that if they haven't used it already in the new CBA. It's a trade exception. And even if he's still only able to play 25 minutes a game, it's a lot more palatable because he's making 12 and a half or 13 or whatever it is. So again, I'm not saying like they need to do this or they should turn down 2 second-round picks right now to try to do this. I'm just saying I think there's a chance that at that new contract, he could get you even more than what he could get you now. And if you feel that that's the case, then I think that's worth exploring. But if you feel like the best you can do is 2 second-round picks and that's available, then you got to do that.
Let me ask you that. Do you think teams, or should I say the Bulls, do you think that they'll be looking at teams and seeing as far as the offseason when it comes, who's looking at Lonzo and what those contracts are, or rumors, or listening to rumors to see what kind of contract are being offered, and then make a decision on him, or do you think that they'll start now? Because you say they can start re-signing him now.
The Bulls can discuss an extension with him.
So do you think they'll wait to hear what's being said about him and what teams are willing to pay, or you think that they'll just kind of go at it? Like, what would be the approach?
I just think you have to think about like which teams in the league have money to spend next year. It's the Nets, and like, are they going to be spending heavy on a guy like Lonzo Ball, who's obviously missed 2.5 years? My guess is probably not. And so you're looking at most, him being a mid-level exception player. If you're beating that or giving him that, obviously you'd want injury protections, games played. If he gets hurt or misses time or doesn't, reach a certain amount of minutes, like Zion, when we talked about the Bulls trading for him potentially, it was like there was a weight clause. If he was heavier than a certain weight, then the Pelicans can waive him, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of protection that I would be looking for in this deal, so that it mitigates the risk that you're concerned about, because I think that's very real. But if he's playing 30 minutes a game next year and he looks even better and he's shooting the ball even better and he's making $12 million, now you're looking at teams giving you a first-round pick. And I think the chances of that may not be high, but it's higher than if you were to trade him now for a second-round pick.
No, I get it. I'm asking, though, like, do you think that approach will be them listening to rumors of what they can be paid? You say the Nets are the one team that can really give you big money.
Yeah, I mean,
there's mid-level exceptions, but obviously you want a lower contract than that mid-level exception, correct?
Ideally.
Okay.
Ideally, yeah. I mean, from the team's perspective, you want to get a guy on the smallest deal you can because it's tradable. I mean, there's certainly situations where that's not the best thing. Like, for example, Kobe White is making so little that the Bulls won't be able to extend him right off of his deal. It's like 4 for $90, I believe, is his extension, which is not going to be enough for him. And so, but I don't think you're going to run into that situation because Lonzo's not in a position to get more money, just given what he's gone through.
Yes,
and
sir.
so it's more about retaining the asset to be able to flip later once he kind of proves that he is healthy and back to more of what he used to look like. And I believe he can get there. I really do. I don't think he's ever going to be the same, but just what we have seen this soon after his return, I think tells me that it's a new knee, not the old knee that you need to be worried about.
Yes, sir.
We will have to put a pause in the trade conversation there for today. But plenty more off days for the Bulls between now and February 6th. So Paul saying, anyone else looking forward to February 6th being done? I am. Well, who knows what will happen between now and then.
Yeah.
Shout out to our guy Gerald from PHNX Suns for joining us. Give him a follow if you want to, tap into what's going on over there with Beal between now and the deadline. Our guy Will Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb, read his stuff, allchgo.com, including his great column that he dropped today on Zach and Beal and all of that jazz. Big Dave is a BWL Sports. I'm Bulls_Peck. We are CHGO_Bulls. Shout out to the queen of the controls, the one and only Katie Dovey. And also shout out to, what's up?
And also shout out to my cousin Connor who watched today. Future professional golf player. I just want to say hi because I know he's watching.
What up, Connor?
Shout out to you.
Keep practicing that swing. I don't play golf. I'm bad at it. Also, shout out to our Hawks guys who are here in studio watching the Hawks battle in the Lightning right now. Trailing 1-0 midway through the first period. They will have live CHGO Blackhawks post-game for y'all coming up later tonight right here on that CHGO Sports YouTube channel. So make sure you keep that tab open and make sure you subscribe. Back in action tomorrow night, Bulls, Celtics, 6:30 Central tip-off in Boston. We will be here for a live pregame at 6 Central. See you then. Have a great night. See you, be good. Hit the like.
Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.